everyone, it's Cathy Zielske, and I'm so happy to be here today with Honeybee Stamps to share this cute little card that basically is featuring one little accessory as the star of the show. I wanted to do this project today because when you get these lovely stamp sets, they have so many amazing things in them. For example, May the mouse has, well, May, and she's adorable. And she can hold all manner of things, and you can play and make a charming card with May. But you can also just take out any number of these little accessories and create a card built completely around those. I'm going to use the Kiss today because I just think it's adorable. I'm also going to be using a sentiment from the Brie Mine stamp set, another set with tons of options for combining sentiments together. Also, I will be using some of the coordinating dies for each set to cut out both the Kiss as well as the word sweets from Brie Mine. So I will be using coordinating dies as well. I've got my Kiss stamp already on an acrylic block, as well as the little banner sentiment that says I love you that goes right on the little tag there at the top. Those are the basics. I'll also be using some black onyx cardstock for my base and some Neenah Solar White to stamp on. Got my Memento ink, so let's go ahead and jump in. Now I'm using Memento today because I'm going to be doing some Copic coloring. Now normally I use my Misty tool. I love my Misty, but on something like this I thought to myself, Kath, it's time to practice your free range stamping. Thank you. Yes, free range stamping for me. I know that I can get better at stamping single images, and I thought this was a great opportunity to try that. So I'm going to clean off the stamp. And the little I love you, I'm going to do that later because I want to go in first with some warm gray markers and color in all of the little tags. It's not a tag. It's a little, what is that, the pull tab on the Kiss? Let's call it a pull tab. I'm going to color all of these in first, and I'll work my way. You don't have to watch the whole thing because, yeah, I'm a very basic coloring person. Copic markers to me are still a little bit intimidating. When I first started making cards in earnest, which was actually in 2017, I had some markers and I was coloring and I couldn't understand, they were just water-based markers, why the blending and the colors didn't look as smooth, and that's when someone said, oh yeah, Kathy, alcohol markers. So I have been slowly collecting them over the past few years, but I still am not confident with my coloring. So I feel like a project like this, if you are new and you're still trying to work it out and figure out, oh, these colors work together and this goes like this. And if you start with a small little item like this Kiss, it's great for practice. Does that make sense? Because you're coloring the same thing over and over again. So number one, you're going to get a little more confident in the way you hold the markers and the way you lay the ink down. And it's also not overwhelming. Now, I have a basic rainbow of markers that I tend to go to time and again, and I do keep little notes and I make little coloring samples just so that I don't have to guess every time that I want to color. But even if you don't have, for example, 3 colors to make that mid-tone blend, you can always take your lightest color and tap it to the next color you have to create a mid-tone. It doesn't work perfectly all the time, but I think it looks pretty good on the green. Another thing I want to talk about is working with the rainbow. Of course, Roy G. Biv, I don't know who invented it. Was it nature or God? Either or, the rainbow's fantastic, and I love the fact that you can modify the rainbow to suit your style and taste. For example, I only need 5 kisses. I stamped out some extras in case I make a mistake, but I'm not a huge fan of yellow, so I'm dropping that from my rainbow in lieu of the green, which kind of has more of a yellow-green feel. But that's something I love to do. I often will drop red out of my rainbow too and go with pink instead because I love pink so much. So you can play around with the choices that you make for your rainbows. Now I'm coloring here with the darker of the 3, and you're going to see how it didn't quite work out the way I wanted. Moving on to my final color, which is purple. And I've just got these 3 colors here, layering it down. Now another thing that Copic colorers will do people approach it differently. I usually lay down the lightest color first. That's just what seems to work for me. And then I go in with the mid-tone and then the darker and then go back over and blend. Now here, I probably should have stopped with this mid-tone because it looked great, but as soon as I brought in that the VO4, which is the darkest color, it started to bleed, and I didn't understand why. I think it's because, well, I had too much moisture on the paper. And once it was colored, and once I blended it out, I'm going to show you here how it kind of bled off the bottom. And that will happen sometimes. That's the other thing that I think practice is really nice, because these Copic tips, they're kind of big. And I don't always stay in the lines, and look what happened. It just started to bleed out a little. But now there's a solution that's kind of easy. You can get a colorless blender. And this is just a pen that has ink in it with no color, and it works like an eraser. You just kind of push the color back into wherever you're trying to erase, and it actually works pretty well. Look at that, kind of cleans it up. So it's a good tool to have. However, I redid it because I was unhappy with how it looked. Now I want to stamp the sentiment, and here's a little tip. If you have a soft surface like this matte, you might want to reevaluate. My stamp was going down uneven and the eyes were really dark, so I just put it on a board and the problem was solved. Now I'm cutting each image out because I want to die cut them separately. I just don't like running multiple images through my die cut machine because sometimes my plates will leave marks. But as I was looking at that one, I thought, yeah, I'm going to redo that one. I didn't erase in time with the colorless blender, so there you go. Live and learn. Using the die and a little purple tape, looks great. I'll go ahead and just cut the rest of those out and get on to the next step, which is using my sentiment here. I just have a scrap of the Neenah Solar White, and the weight I'm using for all the white is 110. It's just my favorite weight. It's very all-purpose. And I am using my Misty here because I know that sometimes with a sentiment, I don't always stamp as evenly. And I love the fact that you can hit it twice, and that is the beauty of the Misty because it is going to be perfectly lined up. You are not going to have any question about that. And that is a beautiful deep black sentiment. Looks sweet. Now, when it comes time to cut these out, you can roll the dice, but you know what I do? I just cut a template. I take some cheaper cardstock, scraps that I have this gray cardstock that I love. It's a lighter weight. And you cut out the sentiment space so that you can frame it out like this. Then you tape it down right onto your piece. And when you bring your die in, it locks into the place you already cut. So then you know, you're going to tape it down here. When you run this through, it's going to cut perfectly. This is just a time saver, and I've been doing this more and more because I don't line up dies perfectly, but why not just save paper and time? And look at that. Perfectly cut sentiment, just like that. So I love using templates. Now I'm going to use some thin foam squares in 2 different sizes on the back of each kiss. I've got this from Scrapbook Adhesive. They make small and medium, or small and large sizes. Going to do all those off camera and also add the same dimension of foam to the sweets. Now the panel here that I'm using, I've already trimmed down to 3 7/8 by 5 1/8, and I'm going to stamp on the rest of the sentiment. I'm using this little Memento ink drop only because you don't need an extra pad, but I had it and I just wanted to leave the kisses in place, but I didn't want to risk getting an ink pad anywhere else on the Misty door, which happens sometimes if you have a tiny little sentiment. So I have my little tiny teardrop Memento ink. I just decided to use that. And then I was able to just leave all the kisses in place. And that's just lined up, just like that. Oh, the Misty. I pressed it down one more time just to make sure because I was worried that maybe it wasn't dark enough, but it looked great. Now I've got my black onyx cardstock from Gina K, scoring it at 5 1/2, so it will be 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 tall. And I like to tape my card bases closed when I'm working on it, just a personal preference. I need things to be flat, so I'm looking straight down. And then I'll use my tape runner here to put directly onto the back of that cardstock panel. And I do this when I'm adhering fun foam. I don't like to use the liquid adhesive for fun foam on the panel side. So this is what I do. It works out really great. That's super sticky stuff. Now I'll bring out my liquid adhesive. I love this liquid adhesive from Gina K. And I will go ahead and just cover the back. The reason I like this is because then when you go to put it on your card base, you can move it a little bit until it's perfectly framed, just like that. Love it. And I'll just put scissors on it till it dries. Now I'm placing the center one first, and I thought I would bring in my little clear T-square just to make sure if the first one's straight, then I'm going to be able to follow suit with the remaining kisses. And I'll place both corners first and then fill in the center ones. The thing about this design, it's very simple. It's just some basic repetition. And that's what I love about taking small accessories and repeating them across your space for a really playful, but also pretty clean and simple design. This is a really simple card project, but I love how it turned out. And it also, again, gave me a chance to use an accessory from a stamp set, make it the star of the show, and also practice a little more Copic coloring. Who knows, I might get more confident as the years go on. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again with another card project soon.